On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, found Lapua brass, the MAC-10 is toast, Larry Vickers is in remission, and Glock Gen 5 triggers. Okay, welcome back everybody. This is episode 276 of the John 1911 podcast. What is today? I guess it's technically Sunday, the 29th maybe? It's really Saturday night. I'm actually in the Armory. It is after midnight, and so this is very late for an old guy like me, which is something considering I used to stay up all night, work at night, and now, 1:45. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so late. So needed to get this podcast out. I want to try something a little bit different. This is going to be a solo episode if you haven't figured that out yet. But what I've decided to do is I want to keep up with I'll call it alternating podcast. Basically, do a podcast with Danny. We talk about world events, politics. It gets very heavy, and the podcasts go forever. And we don't really get a chance to cover projects in the Armory on the ranges, the gun collection, repairs, just, things going on around here. So figure I'll do a solo podcast. It gives me more flexibility to do them. I don't have to coordinate with other people. And then, every other podcast, we get Danny and we go ahead and do all that. So also, before I get into everything that's going on around here, let me remind you that if you have any questions or comments or concerns or Christmas bombs or poison Halloween candy, you can send them to us at our email address for the podcast. It's podcast@john1911.com. That's podcast@john1911.com. Pretty easy for you to remember. If you hear me say something wrong or you have an update to a story or, just feedback in general, and, you how do I get a hold of those guys? Podcast@john1911.com. Can't be any harder than that, right? So the first thing is, let me go ahead and say this because I keep forgetting about it, and I've been forgetting about this for 2 years, and I feel terrible. So, those of you know that we're opening up a store, and there's a lot going on. The coffee mugs are in, and they look good. So we have them. In the process of doing some test shipping, I discovered, to my horror, that all of the shipping software that we've been paying for, and the equipment and the labels that we've had for years. I mean, we've had this stuff for a decade. Doesn't work anymore. Stuff has changed. So, and we discovered this because we're setting up the shipping department again, right? Makes sense? Well, that story leads me into, we had moved the Armory. So we had moved into a new place, did a new build out, changed things around. We created I'd call it a video friendly room, which is, those videos, where I'm sitting now, actually. It's light and bright in here. It's an Armory. You still hear dehumidifiers and all that, but stuff got dropped. And what happened was, there was a guy who was on our Facebook page, and I think he was in Montana or Colorado. And I don't want to have to go back through 2 years of Facebook messages, but we were shooting I think it was 160, maybe it was 175 grain. 175 grain ASIM 308 caliber ammo. And ASIM ammo, it's really good ammo. ASIM loads with Lapua brass. And if you're in the game, Lapua is really hot shit stuff. It's very high quality brass. It's actually pretty thick. That's why you get a lot of reloads out of it. Well, nobody around here will take it. I don't want to throw it away. I have 2 or 3 boxes. And if we buy more ASIM, because I love ASIM, I don't know what to do with the brass. And so, don't want to throw it away. Doc won't take it because all the loads that he's worked up for 308s, he bases everything off federal cartridges because that's what he gets from law enforcement. He gets all the brass he can, and he doesn't want to work up loads for just a little bit of Lapua brass. He won't touch it. He won't. I try to give it to him, and he's like, I don't want it. He doesn't want it in his house. And so I had posted about this on the internet 2 years ago, mind you, and some guy, I had promised that we were going to send it to him. And free of charge, just going to mail it to the guy. And I think he was in Montana or maybe Wyoming or maybe Colorado, somewhere out there. And I could be wrong, but I found it in the packed up shipping department equipment because it had gone into shipping, and then we tossed the Armory and shut down the shipping department, and it got bundled up into there, and I lost control of it. So I found it, realized what it was, and so I posted something on social media asking, hey, any of y'all remember me supposed to send you some Lapua brass? I mean, I promised the guy, and I would like him to get it. So if you know who that is, or if you are that guy, podcast at John1911. Drop me a note. Remind me of who you are. Be honest. If it's not, if it's not you, don't do it. Because I would, I promised the guy. And drop me a note and help an old man out so I can give this wayward Lapua brass a home. Now that that's out of the way, a couple other things that are going around the Armory. Those of you that follow our social media and our website may have noticed that we've been catching up on some backlog projects because we've been dealing with range, re-graveling and re-maintenancing the ranges, especially trying to get it all done before hunting season. So, we have, I don't think I've posted this yet, but we've got the what do you call that thing? It's actually here. It's what is this thing called? I call them Mac 10s, but it's not a Mac 10 because it's a semi-auto. It's a Cobray M11 9mm from, Atlanta, Georgia. So Cobray gun. So this gun, and it's like, cheap gun, like, why do you care? Well, we had gotten it from a secondhand showcase over there at Shooter Supply in Loveland, and I was like, it was a good price, and, I'm a child of the 80s, and it's like, we'll take it, and we'll put it in a reference collection, because, eventually we'll have a need for it. Well, I suspect a lesson was learned when using it. I suspect, a Cobray M11 has never actually been, this one anyway, has never actually been owned by a true firearms enthusiast or someone that's ever cracked it open. What I found inside was horrendous. Now, okay, let me in defense of the cheap Cobray, it ran. But I don't think the springs had ever been changed. They have a giant recoil. They have a giant, recoil buffer in the back of the receiver, the upper. And this is a, 1970s era rubberish type of product that over the years it's disintegrated and almost turned into a goo. And so it's part of it's disintegrated into powder, another part of it's turned into goo, and so the gun's beating itself to death. And then on top of that, the goo stuff is pushing the disintegrated stuff into all the nooks and crannies in the gun. Like, to my horror, when I got the gun open, I found, fouled material from a disintegrated buffer in, the firing pin channel. I mean, that's kind of a channel. The firing pin on a Mac 11, M11, whatever these things are, it's kind of like, it reminds me of like a can opener from a C ration opener from, like milsurp stores. It's the most bizarre looking piece of thing. It's not a pin. It looks like it reminds me of a C ration opener, but it's in a skinny slot. It's stamped sheet metal because it's a cheap gun, and like all this stuff's packed into it. And so we got on the internet. Turns out there's a big following for these guns. So we went ahead and got new springs, 2 new buffer styles, and I actually had to get a pin. We didn't end up not needing it, but we got a pin for the recoil. The recoil spring is on a guide rod, and there's a retaining pin. It's a like an H&K style pin. got an extra one of those, and then I even actually got a new charging handle for it, because the charging handle on the tops of these guns, it's real flat, because it's got to clear the sights, but you can't hardly charge the thing because you can't get your fingers on it. So what I did is I found a aftermarket knurled charging knob to put on this gun, and it really makes the gun much more usable. And it's got a relief cut front to aft, so you can still look through it to see through the rear peep and the front post. It's kind of like an Uzi style charging handle. So got that done. Also the one magazine we went ahead and we got a new mag spring, because it's an actual Cobray magazine, like 25 round mag, maybe it's 30. I think it's, I don't know, I'm looking at it, but we resprung this whole thing, so we're going to be doing some stuff with that. So that went fairly well, other than being horrified by what was going on inside of it. But the other projects that we were having some issues with is the Benelli B76 pistol. So kind of the same situation. B76, gun from the 70s, Italian, not made anymore. You can kind of make an argument that, it's a Benelli, it's well made, but it's kind of peculiar in how it's designed. It's like a wedge lock kind of system. That's the way I would describe it. Some people take issue with that, but it's never had the springs changed in it, because there's the springs, and then what else was there? The grips are messed up. The finish is kind of roached on it. I got to get new grips. I've got it in my hand right now. The recoil spring and the firing pin spring have never been changed in this gun. And I noticed when we were shooting it on video, we did have some function issues with it, and it almost seemed like to me like it was undersprung. Maybe this gun was, number one, I mean, you don't know how old this gun is. I mean, how many rounds are through this gun? It could be a ton, maybe not, but the spring's probably worn out in it. Also, it could be a situation where, it could be some kind of PUD target load that somebody's been putting through it, or maybe it's like 115 grain, 9mm, where around here, if we can help it, we always buy 124 grain, by the case, because it's a standard NATO weight, and so we even try to get hollow point ammo in 124 grain. So 115 if we have to, kind of hold my nose, we'll do 115, but we're a 124 whole bit group around here. So took the gun apart, as I can do. It's not a big deal. It's different, and the recoil spring on this thing has got, it's not a retaining, it's not an E-clip. It's like got a retaining ring on the end of it. So it's an encapsulated recoil spring, and it's not the kind of clips that you put the little tool in with the little holes and you can spread it and get it off of it. It's like a like I'd call like a retaining ring. So it's a little ring, but it's so small it's the circumference of a guide rod. But and I have to get a blade or something in it to try to pop this thing off, not break it, not lose it. But then on top of it, I need to keep it still so it doesn't rotate, so I can pop the thing off. And I am just having a hell of a time. I still haven't gotten that done. So as actually we went and ordered some very small, like jewelers type tools to possibly deal with it. And those will be in probably Monday. And so we'll go ahead and update that. But what was also interesting is, and it was kind of concerning, so, we ordered a spring set from, I think it's Wolf. And so you get a recoil spring and a firing pin spring for the B76. And they offer different spring weights. And I think it's a 12, 10, is it 12? Whatever, I can't remember. I'll have to see what it is. It's it's right here, because I am in the Armory. It is we ordered a 12-pound spring, which is fine. So I think it comes 10, 12, and 14. I thought 14 was probably be a bit too much. And so I split the baby and ordered 12s. And I figured 124 grain 12-pound spring is probably fine. Well, when I go to change the firing pin spring that's in this gun that was in it when we acquired it versus what we got from Wolf, they're not the same spring. I mean, it's not even the same dimension. Like, it's not like, oh, it's an old spring, it's worn out, or it's taken a set. Oh no, this is jacked up. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the spring that we had gotten from Wolf, the new spring, it rests on a shoulder on the firing pin. It makes better sense. And so, it's like, I don't know where the hell that spring came from and who put that in there. Then, what the hell's the deal with the other spring in this thing? And why is the firing pin spring jacked up or missing or changed or whatever? So, yeah, this gun needs a little bit more work, and, we'll get that done. And I just, give you guys some updates on it. But this gun just needs a heavier spring to run heavier loads, and and we'll make some videos on it, and everybody will be happy. And this is going to sound like it's sour grapes around here, but I swear it's not. You just have to realize when you run a large reference collection, there's always guns going down. Look, if we had a car lot with 500 cars on the lot, there'd always be a car in the shop, right? There was always going to be a leak or something broken or something worn out. So the other thing that we have going on is I finally got a chance to take the Stevens 22-410 out, and we made a video on it. And it's an over-under. I think the gun's made in the 50s, but I think you could get them in the 30s. I don't remember the age. But it's got a 22 rimfire on the top, and it's got a 410, 3-inch 410 on the bottom. Cool little gun, just different and unique, and, it's a good reference gun. So shoot the 410, no problem, shooting it on some steel at the range. And then, I'm shooting the 22 rimfire, which I thought that was going to be the walk in the park. Well, there's I guess you'd call it it's a rimfire extractor, so it doesn't eject, it doesn't throw the fired casing out of the gun, it just presents it, lifts it up. And so in shooting the 22, it looks like maybe there's a couple set screws that may have come loose. This extractor had walked and turned, and so you couldn't close the gun. So we haven't even gotten a chance to crack that gun open yet to even try to fix this part. I'm hoping it's just a spring. I don't think we're going to need any new parts for it, because getting parts for that gun's going to be a nightmare. But that is another gun that is now here. Actually, I brought it in with me because it's been in my truck for the past week, but I actually brought it back to the Armory with me tonight so we could get it done and get it on the to-do list to get it back out and do all that. Oh, one more thing on the 22-410. A guy had left, and this is great, a guy had left a comment on YouTube on the initial video we done on the 22-410, and when we purchased the gun, the dealer had mentioned, he's like, I don't know what the history of this gun is, but it smells like vomit. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And sure enough, it smells like vomit. Well, a guy who's, who you are, if you listen to this podcast, thank you for the information. He's apparently quite versed in these Stevens guns. And he said it's got this plastic furniture on it, and he says it's called Tenite, Tenite. That's how he spelled it. I don't know if that's correct. So go after him, not me. And he says as it smells like vomit as it gets older, as it ages. So it like a fine wine. So no worries. Like, someone didn't vomit on this gun in deer camp and not clean it for 50 years. It's just apparently how the crazy plastic from the old days. So yeah, there's a follow-up to that one. So why are we behind on, gun projects and shooting and videos? Well, we're going through a lot of work with the John 1911 range. Because obviously we spent money on the tractor and the equipment, and that's all been running great. Well, there is an issue, but just bear with me. So, but we're trying to, right now we're trying to re-gravel all the main shooting positions. And so what we've done is we have contracted with a company, and, we have to show them the range, which is, like a little scary. And it's like, hey, here's our secret range. And he immediately knew what it was. He's like, this is a goddamn gun range. Like, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So we have had 2 dump truck loads of, I don't know if this translates, but the gravel that we ordered is something he calls 73s. And so the gravel is pulverized from a 1-inch maximum diameter to down to dust. And so we've had 2 20-ton loads dropped, and that did not even do all the pit. So I'm trying to get a 3rd load dropped, and then it'll finish the pit. I'm hoping, I don't have to lay it on too thick. Finish the pit, do what we call the picnic shelter over there, on the rifle range, and then the main 100-yard shooting position. That definitely needs to be re-graveled, and we're pulling up a lot of that the old stuff that we had built 5 years ago, like out of pallets, like, tables and little shooting benches. A lot of that stuff is rotted, has become rotten, and, it's falling apart. It's not stable. No one uses it. It's in the way, and it causes issues. So we've, with the tractor, started pulling all that stuff up, smashing it down. We're going to burn that on site, but we've had red flag days, which, means high winds and dry. So we can't even quite do that yet, but we've been, we've been quite busy with trying to get stuff done. That's kind of set us back. The range maintenance stuff, and then the tractor and the front end cutter, and we don't have a barn. We don't have a barn contract on a barn yet. We're still taking some bids on some stuff, but that's kind of why we're a little behind. And if you had noticed on our social media, on the website, things got, I don't know, like I like to post something. I try to do something every day on the website, and depending on what's going on, if something's big, I may back it off to 5 days a week. It depends. If it's, if I post a 2-hour long podcast with Danny and I solving the world's problems, maybe the next day it doesn't, maybe something doesn't quite show up. It depends what's going on. So we're getting back up to speed. We're getting back up to normal. Finish up the range maintenance. Got to get a couple hunters through their deer season, and then we'll be back to making videos, and with our video team that's been chomping at the bit to do more stuff, but I've had to keep them off the range. But here's a I forgot about this. So a couple weeks ago, the video guys, the main guy, he what was this thing called? It was, bear with me, I'm not a photographer. I mean, some days I'm barely a gun guy. So I hope I don't say this wrong. He's asking me about anamorphic lenses and anamorphic cameras. Anamorphic. I think that's what he said. And so yeah, this guy he does. I mean, he's a high-end video guy. He does movie productions for large companies, training stuff. He's big time. And so he shows up, and because he's really visiting, and then he starts talking about this anamorphic camera stuff, and I'm just listening because I'm okay, yeah, cool, he's geeking out on his cameras, and that's fine. Maybe I'll learn something. And this goes on for about 15 minutes, and he's like, well, that'd be real cool, like, for you guys over here, because like, and he was showing me how an anamorphic lens, you see how you see a lot of it. I'm not even going to describe what it does on a podcast, just not for me, just bear with me. And he's describing here's a scene out of this movie, and you can tell it's shot with an anamorphic lens and all that, and we can do some stuff, and we can do some nighttime stuff. I'm like, oh, that seems interesting. I'm like, so you don't have one of these? He's like, no, I got to buy one. And I'm like, well, what he's really asking me is if John 1911 is going to buy it. And I'm like, well, how much is one of these cameras? How much does one of these things cost? Or it turns out it was a lens. How much is one of these the lens he's looking at? $40,000. And it's like, dude, it's like, I'm going to be $200,000 into this freaking tractor. Like, you're going to have to hit me next year on the $40,000, Hollywood, whatever lens that makes the bright light go sideways instead of vertical. So, I just, they don't listen to the podcast, and they're very nice guys, but, it's like the kind of stuff sometimes people bring to me that I have to put up with. It's like I have to buy this, and it's not even a camera; it's a lens for a camera. So they got all these fancy cameras, and it's a $40,000 piece of glass. So if you don't like the price of those scopes coming out of France for the FR-F2 rifles, or maybe you balk at, the Zeiss or the Schmidt and Benders, just remember there's camera dudes out there spending 40 G's on camera lenses. So I'm going to share this with you. This is a reference to the tractor that we bought, the Massey Ferguson 4707. Giant ass tractor, 11,000 pounds. You climb up into it. So it's got a fairly large gas tank, about 30 gallons, roughly 27 gallons, I guess, diesel. And so, we've been running it so much, even if I use 5-gallon cans, it's getting to be kind of a pain in the ass, because it's never totally full. And, if you see our range has a lot of hills. And one thing that the Massey Ferguson people have told us is they're like, look, if you're down to a quarter tank and you guys are running this thing on your range, you need to go put gas in it. Because apparently, I didn't know this. I'm sure everyone that listens to this podcast knows this. I'm not a diesel or a truck guy. Apparently, you can't run. It's not good. Well, not good. You can't run diesel engines dry. If air gets into the fuel lines, it's a huge drama. Like, take it into the shop, take stuff apart. And so I've been taking that to heart, and I've been, I get it up to half a tank or maybe 3/4 of a tank with a lot of work. And, within a couple days, I'm down to a quarter tank again. So I have started, there's a what do you call it? That's farmer gas, maybe off-road gas. I call it's farmer gas. There's a place that's, I got to get on the road and drive 4 or 5 miles, and I can go to, they've got gas pumps, like your regular diesel and whatever, unleaded octanes gas, and then they got diesel out there, but they have a special pump. And over on that pump, it's 2 pumps. They've got a kerosene dispenser, and they've got a off-road, the farmer gas diesel. And I don't know about the kerosene, but the diesel is got a dye in it. And so it's just like diesel you put in your diesel pickup trucks or your tractor trailer, but you save about 70 cents a gallon on taxes, because all taxes that you pay when you buy gas are supposed to go to road maintenance, kinda. I mean, I guess they're sales tax, but a lot of the taxes are supposed to be for the highways and the roads, right? And so the idea that tractors and what do you call the thing, the harvesters, and all these machines that doing all this work, dump trucks, whatever, they're not really on the roads. They're off-road vehicles. They're not really using. It makes sense, right? So you can get this cheaper gas. So I have to go up and drive on the country roads to get gas. And I got to admit, the first time I did this, it was kind of nerve-wracking. It's the first time I put the tractor in high, and so it's a 12x12 transmission. So it's got the low and the high. It lives in low on the range, but it was on I don't know what was it, a Sunday? I know the first day I did it, it was a weekday, but it was before the like rush hour people coming home or maybe going to school or whatever. So I get out there and I run it up, and I'm like, trying to, how does, because it's got all these different ways to shift it. It's got a clutch, and it's got a shuttle thing, and then it's got a declutch button. It's a hydrostatic transmission. So, I'm like, oh, so they say you can do this, and I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, and something ground, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. I don't understand how this works. So I went back to doing a clutch and just, the old-fashioned way, like we all used to drive manuals. So that was the first time I took it up. I got gas, brought it back down, did whatever. That was like a week or so ago. So it's Saturday night, so this was for Thursday. It needs gas. Like, this is how much we're using this thing. So, all right, let's go on up and let's get her done. So I'm coming up to it's a 4-way stop, and I'm rolling up to it, and because there's other vehicles around, and I'm taking my time, and I had done something the second time with this tractor, and I guess if you are, I don't know if this is true with John Deere's or Kubotas or New Hollands or Case International Harvester or I don't know, whatever. But with the Massey Ferguson tractors, because they're all computerized. I mean, this thing is fancier than my pickup truck. And I'm rolling up to the stop sign, and I generally control, forward and neutral and reverse using, there's a little shuttle next to the steering wheel on the left. If you can put it in the middle position, it's neutral, or if you lift that shuttle button up, it's, put it in a neutral. You can hold it in neutral. And this comes in handy when you're working on the range, back and forth, cutting and doing whatever. You don't have to use the clutch. You use the shuttle, the thing, and I'm used to using the shuttle. Well, I did something that I've never done before. I'm rolling up to this stop sign, and I'm off the gas. I'm in neutral. I'm not because it's a habit, right? It's a training scar. I'm lift the shuttle, which holds the tractor in neutral, and I've got the clutch depressed, and so I'm in neutral, and I'm rolling up to this stop sign. And, it takes a while, but, I want to give cars other times to get through. I don't want to just go up and stop. I got time. People going around me. And the tractor all of a sudden goes beep. And I don't know what the hell that beep was. And I'm trying to get it, get in the go. Got my turn to go and trying to get it in gear. And it's not working. Oh, what's going on? It looked like I stalled out the tractor. So, got in gear, go get the gas, make the turn, go down to the place, heading back, come back to the turn, do whatever, get it back onto the property, doing what I'm going to do. And we're about done for the day because it was kind of the end of the day, gas it up so we can come back the next day. And so I go to park it, and I, put it, where I'm going to park it, and I'm getting ready to shut the tractor down, and it throws this giant code. And, like it's a warning code. And, these tractors are so computerized. The Massey Ferguson, it's not like, code 4710 or code 55100. It's like, they're like 12, 15-digit codes. Like, it's in the billions. And there's so many codes. Some of them are conditions. Some of them are warning. It's just like, check engine light on your car. But, like, there's all these different things going on. Like, just all this stuff. And I'm like, what the hell is this code? And, there's no warnings like stop running the tractor. And the manuals there's so many codes that they don't put them in the regular user operator manual because the manual would be as thick as a phone book. So that's a separate tech service manual that you buy. And so I reach out to my dealer, and we're like, hey, took a photograph of it. What's this code? And, I warned you guys that I don't think the dealer likes us. I still haven't heard back from him. Tractor's under warranty, too. But, that's fine. So, got on the internet, found a guy that is a tech for Massey Ferguson, and he came back with the code, and he's like, that is a transmission, like, it's not reading the EEPROM. Like, it's some memory setting for the transmission. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what's wrong with my transmission? Remember, I told you about that beep? When that beep happened, I didn't realize I thought that was like a warning, like, hey, jackass, shift the gears right or something. Like, I didn't know what it was. Well, retrace my steps, looking at the error, talking to the guy, and I'm like, I think I reflashed the calibrate, because you calibrate the transmissions on these tractors, and I think I put it in some kind of reflash mode while I was driving it to calibrate the transmission, which, is not good. So he's like, yeah, I think that's probably it. And he's like, there's two ways to handle this. There's a short version, and then there's like a full whatever one. And so he gives me the short one. And today I was actually at the range, and went through the recalibration process. Everything's cleared. Nothing's come back. It's all fine. Everything's good. So, there's don't depress your clutch and hold your shuttlecock or shuttle thing, whatever the hell the thing's called. Don't hold your cock in neutral if you don't want to, jack up your fancy computer tractor. Well, let me talk about some good news. It's not our news, it's industry news, but I saw it and I felt real good about it. And I'm sure many of you have now seen it too. Larry Vickers has popped back up. And I noticed it over the past couple of days. I noticed Larry had started publishing on social media again. It looked like it was him. It wasn't like a media team or a social media manager. You could tell it's Larry Vickers, just you know. And he has popped up on a video podcast with Classic Firearms. Apparently, Classic Firearms moved into a new facility as well, and he was down there with I'm so bad with the internet YouTube guys. Such, I don't know what his real name is. Such, Sootch, Such. Or maybe it's S00, I don't know. But the Such guy, he showed up, and Vickers was at Classic Firearms, paying a visit, and showed up on a video podcast. And it looks like Vickers is doing okay. He said his cancer is in remission, and he said he hasn't been doing any traveling and not doing a lot of stuff because, he's got cancer, first of all, and he's, on chemo. And, there's been COVID and all this other crazy horseshit going around. So, that dude can't catch a cold right now. So, but he was talking about the future. Cancer's in remission. He's, knock on wood, he was thinking maybe he might go to SHOT Show. We'll see. I wouldn't push that if I were him. Everyone gets sick and they go to the SHOT Show. He was even talking about the possibility of maybe having some, I would call them home base classes, because he lives in North Carolina now. And he was intimating that, there's a couple ranges and a couple places where he knows some people, and he might be open to the idea of having a few classes. This is what he said. Having a few classes maybe close to home, so maybe he can be home at night. Look, he's being honest, and I think we all can kind of sympathize with his dilemma. He said basically after he got sick, because he's been traveling all the time. And look, he was military for years, which is constant, traveling, and there's a lot of stress on relationships. And then he travels all the time with his firearms business and training and consulting. And then he got cancer. And, and rightfully so. I think his wife basically was like, shut it the fuck down. He didn't say it that way, but that's what happened. And he was like, yes, ma'am. And so, he's had to prioritize his health and his family and, staying close to home. But he's popped his head back up, and he says his cancer's in remission. And, when a guy has cancer and, it's pretty serious cancer. He says it isn't, but, it wasn't like they went in and, at the dermatologist and just, okay, yeah, it's fine. You technically cancer, but you're fine. Chemotherapy and all this other kind of stuff. He can't be around people because his immune system's compromised. And then we've all heard the stories about something happened with the ATF and his SOT license, which I guess had lapsed because he was that sick. You don't hear, he doesn't post on social media, it's like, all I'm saying is it's the good news story of the week. Larry Vickers has popped back up. I think he's a gem of a man. Just, I think it's better for all of us. I think it's just good news. I'm just happy to see Larry Vickers. Seems like he's doing okay. Okay, a couple things that have come up. Either some things I've noticed on the internet, or we've had some questions. Unfortunately, I don't have names or anything to give to you, like as far who did this. But run through them real quick because I don't want to go on forever here. I mean, it's after 1 o'clock now. But first question was thoughts on Cabot guns. Cabot's a 1911 maker. To be honest with you, I don't think anything of Cabot guns. I don't pay attention to them for a couple reasons. Number one, I mean, the idea of like a gun made out of meteorite doesn't appeal to me at all. An $8,000 gun that is more about being gold plated than I'm not. Look, I don't pay attention to Cabot, so I don't know what I don't know, and so I'm not trying to be that guy. I mean, I'm not like a guy that's like. I mean, I've had $7,000 1911s. I have $4,000, $5,000 1911s now. I mean, I run them every day. The thing is with Cabot is I've never paid attention to him. Don't know anything about him. I guess Cabot maybe Cabot's the high line, and then like maybe the same company has a lower tiered price point brand called Alchemy. I just learned that in the past probably 5 or 6 months. Like I don't even know that. But the thing is with Cabot guns, even if they're as perfect as everyone says they are and that they say they are, I mean, I'll take it at their face value, fitting and materials and I don't know, like whatever your idea of perfect is. My problem with them is like the first thing is the slide stop on those guns. I mean, it's a generic GI kind of slide stop. And I don't believe in that. I'm like, you're going to spend $7,000 on a gun or $8,000 on a gun. Like, this is the latest and greatest. This is, 100 years of development. And here we are. And it's like, here's the gun. You're the best 1911 ever made. And it's like, well, why is your slide stop from fucking 50 years ago? The slide stop from 50 years ago worked just fine. But I see that and that kind of stuff and I just hate it. And, also to be honest with you, I mean, like and this is in the line of the meteorite guns. I think they're ugly. I'm not opposed to a gauche, garish, pushy, flashy gun, but I think they're ugly most of the time. And then like if I see one that isn't ugly, it's like, it's kind of cool gun, but running gun, I see that goofy slide stop or that like low profile GI style thumb safety. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I don't get it. I don't, to me, it's about performance. It's about shooting, not about collecting. And Cabot actually is more of a target to the kind of like the gun form collector kind of guys. Fun fact, there's a guy who was popped up on YouTube who I don't know who this guy is as much as you do, and it's something called he's called the Collector, and that probably doesn't really narrow it down, but I believe that's what he calls himself. And he has a ton of these Cabot guns, and a lot of these this guy likes a lot of these limited edition, one of one, gold plated or super fan, not gold plated, but these crazily finished firearms. And the dealer that he buys them from is actually local to us. It's called Black Rose Firearms. Black Rose is Black. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Black Rose is real close to AIM Surplus. And if you're familiar with classic firearms I was talking about with Larry Vickers, you're certainly familiar with AIM Surplus. Black Rose, you could walk to Black Rose from AIM Surplus. Like, I've been in both places. I mean, I remember when AIM Surplus was another place, but neither here nor there. Cabot guns, don't really pay a whole lot of attention to them. And that's kind of why. I mean, I don't want to. Okay, like, all right, here's another one. Like, just, I think and the person didn't ask this, I'm going to tell you. I think the Korth guns are kind of interesting. Those Korth revolvers, that kind of got my attention. I like it's interesting. I like the story about the super durable revolver, Michael Z, notwithstanding. Some of you will get that. And, it's interesting. I like one 38 special with maybe a 9mm switch barrel. I'm intrigued with how the lever up by the hammer to unlock them. They're very interesting guns to me. If I can find one, good price, I'd like to shoot it. I don't want one that's 100% perfect because I'm going to shoot the gun and I'm going to shoot it a lot. Nighthawk they're now importing or doing something with Korth revolvers here in the United States. And I can't stand these guns. I can't, most of them, I can't stand them. They're just, they're just fucking awful. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Like these brightly color case hardened, they'll have like these, I don't know, what do you call it? Like porting in them that shows, or partial porting that shows a sleeve underneath in gold and accents. Like they're like Cabot. Like it's just, look, I'm not the guy. I'm not that guy. So no one cares what I think. I mean, if I want it, I'm going to buy. If I want your shit, I'm going to buy your shit. That's what I always say. But, the Cabot guns, yeah, I'm not getting. I'm sure there's a Cabot out. I've seen one Cabot. I'm like, that's a good looking gun. But then, like, I look at it closely, and there's a couple of things I'm like, this is jacked up. These Korth revolvers out of Nighthawk. I'm like, I need something a little bit more traditional. And I know that makes me sound like a FUD, and I'm not a FUD. I'm really not. But it just, a lot of that stuff just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me. I don't want to pay more for flash. I want to pay more for performance. I'll spend the money, but I want the performance. I don't need it to look like a John Wick Hollywood movie thing. And on those lines, we had somebody ask about there's a I'm gonna say this. A D&L Sports is a custom 1911 maker, I believe in upstate Ohio. We're in Ohio. And they come out with this device. It bolts onto for a 1911, it bolts onto it's 1 o'clock in the morning, a light rail. And they call it a standoff device. And what it is, it's a piece of metal that bolts onto the rail of a 1911 and goes out and turns up 90 degrees in front of the muzzle. And so you can push your gun up against somebody or something and pull the trigger, and the gun won't actually the disconnector, it won't go out of battery to keep it from firing. It doesn't have a disconnect. It keeps the gun from from automatically keeping itself from firing out of battery, right? And it's a product that I don't know if it's a couple $100, and it looks cool. Like, I mean, it looks like a very well made piece of something, but it's a piece of shit. Like, it's not real. Okay, the product. Who buys the standoff device from D&L Sports? Well, D&L Sports needs to, they need to have a SKU. They need to sell products like, hey, if you don't want to buy this, you can buy this. You want to buy this, you can buy this. Like, if you can't sell somebody a whole gun or a complete custom build and you can sell them parts, you sell them parts. It's called America, and it's called making money. And if you're going to make a standoff device, this, I guess, is a way to do it. And these things have existed before. This one's targeted to the custom 1911 market, and, it looks cool. Like, I'm not going to take, as opposed to me complaining about the looks of Cabot and the Nighthawk Korth revolvers, like this D&L thing, like, man, it looks cool. But if you've ever actually been involved in combatives or firearms combatives, or even even like like you show up around Craig Douglas with this standoff device, and he's gonna shove it up your ass. But neither here nor there. This thing is for people that like to buy stuff to look cool, and whether you're a personal collector or someone that buys a Cabot gun or someone that buys a crazy looking Korth, you're the market for that. There is one more market for all of these Cabot, Nighthawk, core things and the DNL Sports standoff device, and that would be Hollywood prop houses. An Aliens movie, and the Space Marines, are held up in the air shaft, and the alien thing's coming at them, and was it Ramirez or Rodriguez? She pulls out her 1911, and it's a 1911, but it's a year 2022 or 2122. It is 2022. If you got to tart up the gun a little bit to make it look more spacey, like more futuristic, this DNL standoff device is perfect for the Hollywood movies like Stargate 9, or, it's a gun. It looks like a gun, but looks like it's got a little extra more to it. That's what this is for. If you're asking me about the standoff device for a 1911, no. You need to learn high pectoral thumb index. I'm not a trainer anymore, and I'm not training you. Find someone else. I'm a student. I'm always trying to get better, and I certainly know what the high thumb pectoral index is, and ideas of contact shots and how to do that, or contact distances. So can't necessarily buy skill. As cool as it is, I mean, it does look cool. It make look cool in a video or a movie, but no, that's gonna be a no-go for me. Another one that came in, and somebody's asking about TISA 1911s having soft metal. I have no idea. I have no idea. Sorry, I've never heard of that. I know what TISA is. I've never messed with them. I know they're out of Turkey. I don't know if they're high-quality Turkey stuff or if they're low-quality garbage, and I certainly know nothing about the metal. I imagine if there's people on the internet or on these gun forums that, dudes that don't shoot will certainly know if the gun has got soft metal or not, because that's something they can all talk about. So I would check with them. That's what they would know about that. Another thing that came up, and this actually didn't come from a listener. I think he listens. This came from a law enforcement guy down in Alabama who we know, and he had mentioned something about Glock Gen 5 triggers and how bad they are. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, he's saying the Gen 3 trigger is way better than the Gen 5 trigger, and he's talking about how they've had issues with them. And it's like, well, I mean, look, to be fair, the only Gen 5 gun I've put any rounds on is we got one from Officer Mike when the Glock 45, G45 came out. We shot the gun. It seems like a nice trigger, ambi controls on it. Seems like a cool gun. It's the gun everybody wanted, right? Well, it turns out, and this is the difference between somebody getting a product review and being like, ooh, this is cool, this is neat, look at this, and like the long-term whatever. According to my acquaintance in Alabama, what happens is the Gen 5 triggers start off okay. But I guess the more you shoot them, because it's got an ambi slide stop, the ambi side of it somehow rubs against the trigger bar, or the trigger bar in the Glock, and it causes like a burr, or it causes a wear point, and it ends up trashing the trigger pull. And so what they end up having to do is they have to replace these trigger bars. Maybe they're putting a different generation trigger bar. I don't know if that'd be possible. I don't know enough about the Glocks between Gen 3 and Gen 5. But it's like, it is possible that everybody listening to this podcast right now knows all of this about the Gen 5, and I'm like the last guy. But I literally just heard this like 2 days ago. And it's one of those things where you're like, you just got to give stuff time. Everybody needs... The ambidextrous pistol is the holy grail for a lot of the RFPs. And, Glocks are generally pretty bulletproof. I mean, they're, those original, 40s, they were a problem, but they fixed it. So I'm not subscribing to Glock perfection. But if this Gen 5 thing is true, I think that's a big deal. And so if you know anything about that, maybe everybody knows about it, leave me a message at podcast@john1911 and tell me what the deal is with the Glock triggers. Okay, we've been going for a while. Let's go ahead and do a police blotter. Yes, we're still keeping the police blotter even for the solo episodes. And let's go ahead and toss it. So, this is a police blotter because this is a 911 call for to the PD. So this is police blotter. Out of Florida, lawyer who advocated against helmet laws dies in motorcycle crash. Apparently, this guy was a very well-known attorney that was against helmet laws. And I'm not saying I'm for helmet laws. I rode motorcycles for years. I never wore a helmet. But I kind of put the motorcycle behind me. As we get older, there's various reasons. I figured a convertible was probably more my speed, and so I went the convertible route. But it's one of those things where you're like, oh man, this guy was like the anti-helmet lawyer, anti-helmet advocate, and he and his girlfriend, I think, died in a crash. And apparently, according to the coroner, they died from head trauma. So, okay. Second story, this is also a police blotter because this is as the gangsters would say in Long Beach, this is a 187. So, murder, death, or kill, right? Is that MD murder, death, kill? Is it 187? I can't remember my rap. World's dirtiest man, aged 94, dies shortly after taking bath for the first time in decades. So, don't let if you're parents and you have young children and every night is a battle to try to get them to brush their teeth and take a bath, don't let them hear this story or you're never going to hear the end of it. And so the final story out of Tennessee is out of the local, their death row. Like in Ohio, we have our death row is at, I think it's Lucasville. We used to call it Old Sparky. It's Lucasville. So, hey, this story doesn't end as bad as it starts. So just hear me out. All right. Death row inmate cuts off his junk, the full pickle and ball, right? Pickleball, after being denied special food package. But hey, have no worries. Surgeons reattached it, so his nights and his weekends are still fine. So, he's on death row. He cut his dick off, and your taxpayer dollars went to reattach it just so we can kill him later. Well, that wraps up episode 276 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links, please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good night.